Hello and welcome to the Powered by Herts podcast. My name is Brie McDermott-King, and in this podcast, I get to speak to the University of Hertfordshire's most inspiring graduates about how they overcame their biggest challenges and how they achieved their professional success. I also get to help you get ahead in your own career by getting specialist advice from Herts experts. On today's episode of the Powered by Herts podcast, I'm speaking to Herts graduate Hamid Ibrahim. Hamid completed a digital animation degree at Herts back in 2017 before joining the visual effects studio, The Moving Picture Company. There, he worked on the live-action remake of The Lion King. He also co-created Kugali Media, an entertainment company that tells stories inspired by African culture. And in 2024, Kugali Media released a sci-fi series on Disney Plus called Iwájú, which was nominated for 3 Children's and Family Emmy Awards. Hamid, it's so lovely to have you on the podcast. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Always. So if it's okay with you, I want to start right at the beginning of your journey at Herts. So why did you decide to study digital animation?
It was a very weird journey. It came from a passion I had from when I was a kid, where I wanted to see the things that I loved as a child. I wanted to see how they were made. But growing up back home in Africa, you don't really think that's really a path you can take. So when I moved to the UK and I realized the path that's possible, all that possibility and all those dreams kind of opened up again. And I was like, I want to go down this path. And it was the closest thing to kind of merging art and science at that time. One of my idols is Leonardo da Vinci, and that's because he managed to bring together art and science. Digital animation kind of had a very good middle ground there, and that's the thing that took me down that path.
I love it. And so what did you enjoy most about your course?
Generally, I think there was a very diverse range of people in terms of when you look in the creative fields, it's a very wide range. You get all the characteristics of human beings, and I like that a lot. And also, I really enjoyed the lecturers because a lot of lecturers had experience in the field as well. And the fact that they had experience in the field, it gave you a sense of comfort in that the person teaching you this at least has been there. So it cannot be that drastically different from that. So there was that thing that was almost like a big leg up. Herts, for example, had over other unis I was looking into when I was about to join. Just the lecturers had been there. The work looked very good. The environment was a bit quiet. I was a bit of a party animal then. But I was like, I can sacrifice 3 years of my life. And yeah, went very well.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, we might hear more about your party animal ways with this question, but I wanted to know about some of your favorite memories from your time at Herts.
I think right when we were wrapping up the course, and obviously at that point you've had it in your last piece of work.
Yeah.
So there's nothing more you could technically do. And that's when the realization of, oh my God, we need to find work now. Like we have to
Real
leave
life.
the university. Life is starting now. That was in the back of my mind. And I remember I got a job offer. I did not apply for that job actually, but I got a job offer around that time. And I remember I accepted that job offer without saying yes. Like without, sorry, reading the whole email. So I just said yes without reading the whole email, right? And obviously in Herts, the job was it was Electric Theatre. The job is in London. But I just said yes. I didn't read how much they were going to pay me. I didn't care. I was just like, just a job offer. So I said yes to it. And in that same day, when that job offer came, I got a phone call for now a company I applied, which was Moving Picture Company, MPC. And it was an interview with them. And I remember I aced that interview. And I remember during that, because both of those happened in the same day. So during that period of time, I was just like everything just aligned. So that was one of those memories, which was like very much, I was like, oh, wow, that's like everything worked out very perfectly. And if you take into account how nervous you are of work, so you're not starting from neutral to really good. You're starting from really bad to really good. So it was a huge swing all the way through.
Wow, that's incredible though, the way that all worked out. And it's an incredible segue also to my next question because I wanted to talk about the fact that yes, after graduating, you joined the Moving Picture Company, and worked on the live action remake of The Lion King, which is like iconic, huge. So what was that like, especially working from on such a classic movie anyway, but also as an African as well? Just yeah, explain that to us.
It was such a big deal for me, specifically because the film that inspired me to love animation was the Lion King original.
Oh, that's lovely. That's
So
nice.
it was a very drastic circle of life moment. Because one, when I started this journey, in the back of my mind, obviously I'm just trying to do the best I can, but in the back of my mind, it didn't seem believable.
Mm.
I tell people because that's when I achieved my dreams actually. Because I'm one of the privileged people who have actually managed to actually achieve what they had, which was their dreams, which was it was just simply I wanted to work on a large Hollywood production, and it happened to be a film that had inspired me. So it was almost like a twofold process over there. So I remember one when we started working on the project, I could not believe it. It just didn't seem real. And then I started contemplating just a range of if somebody told me this was possible years ago, I don't think I would have believed them. I'd have thought it was some kind of joke. So that's how much of a big of a deal it is. And even just getting into MPC was such a big deal to me because I know they work on big projects. And I remember when I got the job and we went in for the first day, like introduction, I remember I got in early as you do, but they invited people in rounds. So it was like 3 people at a time, right? Because obviously they're showing people security and all that stuff as well. Now I came in before, because of that, I came in when the round before me was walking in. So and they told me, no, you have to wait. Then I think my brain was like, oh, there we go. They're gonna tell me now you didn't get the job, go back home. It was just a joke. Those are thoughts I was having over and over again. We got into the building, I remember, and they give you your contract, and obviously one side is white, one side has words. I opened it the other side, right? It was blank. I was like, yeah, obviously, it's nothing there, it's a joke. Like every single thing that would happen, my brain was just
Every
telling me, that's a
hurdle, you're
joke.
like,
When
yeah.
I was logging into the computer the first time, I put in the password wrong the first time. And I was like, yeah, I'm not even in the system. That it was just that thing of I just could not believe it over and over again. Like every step of the way. I remember the first time when it truly hit me that, oh my God, you're here. That was when, obviously, when you're inside the system, you can look at different projects behind the scenes, they're not out yet. And then you click on it and you actually see, like, you came from a student to now you're seeing something that's going to be on the big screen. That was a big moment. That's when I was like, I'm actually in here. I'm actually here. So that was
Yeah.
the very first big one. I remember on the way back home that day, I almost got hit by a car because MPC is in Soho. And you can imagine how the drive was
Yeah.
going crazy, right? Now, I was smiling so much. I was so delirious, right? I didn't even know how I got home. All I know is I go home. I was trying to stop smiling because my cheeks were hurting, but I couldn't
Yeah.
stop smiling. Like that's how much of a big of a deal it was for me. So that whole experience, that whole journey, just given from where I started from to where I ended up, it was such an unbelievable journey. I tell people, me becoming, let's say right now, the CEO of Walt Disney Animation Studio, like the whole entity, is more believable to me from where I am right now than it was for me to come from where I was there to work on that project. So there was it was such a large gap. So it was crazy. It was a crazy time.
What a beautiful testimony. And yeah, a great full circle moment, of course. And I just want to quickly touch on that because I do think, me remembering when I was a graduate and applying for jobs, I feel like my imposter syndrome and my fear of, real life is imminent. I'm not going to be this comfy, cozy, supported student anymore. I think I did lowball myself in the types of jobs that I went for because I was like, well, they're not going to hire me and they're not going to hire me. So can you just speak to how you felt when you did apply for that moving picture company job? How did you feel about it? Did you believe in yourself? Did you think you were going to get it?
Yes and no, because you're aiming into the darkness, right? And
Right.
you're just going with a relative vibe. Like all I knew is I'm just gonna give myself the best chance to get it. And the way I thought about that was if I am better, I was like, okay, if I'm better than everybody in my class, that gives me a better chance. If I'm better than everybody in the uni, including people in masters, I'll give me a chance. So I almost tailored my third year portfolio for what they were doing. So the imposter syndrome is always going to be there in some sense, in that it's always floating in the back of your mind, especially if you're trying something truly like impactful, right? Something that's going to change the nature of your life. Even if you have everything for it, because it's going to change the nature of your life, your body itself does not know what that life would be. So it's scared of that, right? So that's a big friction. And I always go with the thing, I've said it a few times, it's been a quote I've lived by for a very long time now, is most people will probably bend the rules even if you're good enough at what they want you to be good enough at. So, and that's something I learned earlier on is rules are usually made to capture a certain set. But if the moment the value you're providing is gonna go beyond what the average value is, people even bend the rules for that. And I'll even go further to say, obviously, just judging by both our skin colors, right? There's that thing of people who are scared about being the biases in the workplace. And I tell them, somebody could hate you, but if you could make them $1 million in 24 hours, they would love you for those 24 hours. So even if maybe they're not the best person for you to work with, it never blocks your opportunity if they're high up enough. Because if they're high up enough, they have made decisions that would make them, hopefully, not all of them, but a good chunk of them would have made decisions that would make them successful, and they care more about their success more than they care about your failure. That's how they got there. Otherwise, they would stay down, right? So usually, even if somebody is up there, even if you think all the biases are against you with the person at the top, if you can give them the result they want, they would not only accept you, but they'll even bend the rules to get you there.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many gems in what you just shared. And funnily enough, one of my module leaders at Hearts also said that. She was like, try and be an organization's, try and be the solution to their problem, and you're fine. That will always override everything else. No, that's so good. So take us from that moment then. You've got the job at Moving Picture Company, you've got the right password, you've got the ID, you've passed security, you're definitely there. Will take us to the journey of when you co-created Kugali Media. What inspired you to create it?
So the Kugali journey was a very interesting one in that it technically began even before I got the job at Moving Picture Company. It started because I wanted to do something from back home always, but it was like a side thing I wanted to do. That was the goal, was I'm gonna do something back home, just because, again, if you've looked at generally African media in general, I'm from Uganda, but just all over the whole continent, and you rewind it to when we graduated, which was 2017 on my end, and you look at what the quality was then, I just wanted to do something to push that needle forward, right? So that was my goal at first. So I always had that. Kugali was technically started. We're not registered yet, but technically we were already doing stuff, already conversations happening before that happened. So I got into MPC. So I would finish work over there, then I'd go home, do some work. That's the only good thing. One of the biggest things I liked actually about the industry itself, because of the high sensitivity of the material, so very high security, you can't take any work back home. So when you leave the office, you're free.
Okay.
Right? Like most jobs, you have something you're thinking about, something you're doing, right? But there was that large advantage of I leave this office. I know the moment I press log out and I go out that door, that's it. I'm not thinking about it. No point even doing anything doing it, right? So that created a space for me to where I'll just focus on Kugali things. Now I was doing that throughout, that was being okay. And the thing that made me go that switch to where I'm gonna focus on this full time was at that time we're working on the Dumbo remake. And I remember an animation came out and I thought it looked really cool, but from an African standard lens. That's a big aspect, right? And I remember I showed it to my colleagues with no context. So I just went, yo, look at this cool thing. Now, obviously, they're judging it from the context of what we consider cool things. And they just ripped it apart. Nothing, not their fault. They were like, look at the cloth simulation he's stuck on his leg, the lip sync is off, the hair is glitching over there. So it was all justifiable things, right? But it led them down a tunnel where they ended up looking at African visual effects, and they found African Spider-Man. And that's hilarious for all the wrong reasons.
Okay.
It has millions of views.
Yeah, yeah.
Check it out, right? And then there's Who Killed Captain Alex as well was another one. So it was almost like the highlight of the African industry was a joke. And that rubbed me the wrong way. And another thing I learned is, again, on changing people's minds, right? You don't control what you believe. Like I can tell you something right now that will completely change what you believe, and you can lie to yourself as much as you can, but you have no control over that. So that moment it hit me, like there was that belief that grew in me is, how can you be here working in the cutting edge of visual entertainment, so the work we managed to achieve, when back home, all our best efforts are pretty much a joke in some sense of a way. And that's the thing that made me go, you know what, I'm going to focus on Kugali full time. So I tried to save as much as I could, which obviously you think you've saved enough, but you never do. So that was trying to do that. I remember I tried to talk to as many people in leadership in MPC as I could, which was a very unusual thing. So I realized after now with some leadership, I realized how much heartache and how much stress I'd have caused the people there. Because it's not, because even if it's a very open field, even if not in Hearts, the course, right? If you look at people who are like from African descent or Black, or British and so on, it's not quite as many. And there's a whole story because of that. It's nothing to do with the uni, right? But you'll probably be like 3 people. So in the whole MPC building in our department, there's probably like 2 of us who are dark skinned, right? Now, at that point, if you contact HR, because that's the only people you have access to, right? If we ask questions, it's HR and production. If you message production saying you want to talk to the boss, I thought, me, myself, they would assume that I would just want to learn something. Because I just said I'm about to leave. Then I said I want to talk to the boss. Now unknowing, they probably assumed something bad happened. Because they emailed me saying, hey, is everything okay? Were you treated okay? I was like, no, it's fine. I just want to talk to him. Like in my mind, innocently, I just want to talk. I just want to learn something from him. And he actually gave me one of the quotes that was almost perfect for who I am as Hamid, which was, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And for a person who is ambitious, likes to do stuff, right? You have multiple abilities. You can almost trap yourself in trying to do everything at the same time, and you absolutely downgrade the quality of what you do. And that quote has helped me tremendously. So I give him his credit, like large credits over there. So MPC, talk to him, he gives me the advice. I talk to multiple people. I try to talk to as many people as possible. I didn't even know the offices looked that nice in MPC. There were some very, very nice offices in that building I did not know existed. Let's put it that way. But again, opened up my eyes a little bit more and left to go full-time Kugali, and the rest is history.
Amazing. Well, let's talk about that history, because Kugali Media caught the attention of Disney after after saying that you wanted to kick their ass, which you should give us some context about. But this ultimately led to a partnership with them and the creation of Iwájú, which, as I mentioned before, nominated for several children's and family Emmys. So, what is Iwájú about? And well, yeah, what was it like creating that series?
So Iwájú is a coming-of-age story following Tola, who is our hero. It takes place in Lagos, Nigeria, by the way, in the future of Lagos. So roughly 100 years ahead. So we're not given an exact timeline, but just think Lagos in the future. Tola, who is from a wealthy family, very wealthy family. So the dad is pretty much a billionaire almost, like tech billionaire in Lagos, Nigeria. And then she has a best friend who is Kole, who is a house help. Now, if you've grown up in Africa, you know how that goes. Usually some house help. And sometimes somebody will bring in a younger house help, but they're working, but they're paying for all their school fees and the rest, and they're helping the family, right? So it's almost like a thing, but they're also helping a little bit this way. So that's Kole's position generally. But Kole is very talented, obviously, in the tech side as well, though that's his side. And the clash between those two worlds, and they end up going to, I'm trying not to spoil it, I'm not describing in a very long time. They clash in those two worlds and end up going to the Lagos mainland, which is the less fancy part of Lagos. And obviously in this future world we have created, that contrast between the have and have nots is very drastic. And Tola gets us off in some trouble, and we have to find a way to sort all that out. And there's a very big bad man called Bode there as well.
That sounds awesome.
Thank you. So that's Iwájú. In terms of the process of creating it, that was interesting because Iwájú in the world stage is a significantly bigger deal than, for instance, me working on the Lion King. It's not even close to the world stage. But to me, just reflecting back on me saying that first step was the biggest one for me. The excitement for Iwájú versus the excitement for when I entered MPC. This was very exciting, but the MPC one was significantly larger. Now, just for context, Iwájú is the first time in Walt Disney's 100-year history to ever collaborate with another entity to create an original animation. It's never happened. It's the first time they've done it, right? So it's a piece of history forever, right? And also, obviously, the 3 Emmys, we are the first African animation to have multiple Emmys.
Incredible.
Right? So it's like a very large deal as a result
Yes.
of this entity, right? This is just me painting the picture of how big that is with something people can imagine as a big thing. Because people will be like, if I get an Emmy nomination, now we got this one and that, but that was not close to this, just based on where it came from.
Wow.
In terms of the process, it was a very interesting process. Thank you. It was a very interesting process creating it, just because we are a very fresh company. We believe in our ethics. We believe in why we started as a company. And Disney is 100 years old, and they have history, and they know what they're doing. How do you get those two together and not have Disney eat us up, or not have us mess up everything Disney did? That was a tricky balance there. It was trying to find a way to get the best of both parties versus getting a mix that one party just does not contribute what it's worth. And it was easier for us to do that because we managed to kind of put down our goals with Disney in terms of the creation of this. And one of the key ones was authenticity. And we told them we tell authentic African stories. That's our goal as a company. If we're not doing authentic African stories, there's really no point for us to be there. There's no point for us to make it. So you can just go make it by yourselves. Like, what's the point, right? So because they bought into that vision of the authenticity had to be a very strong part of it, it was very easy to self-correct, and we're all going towards the same direction. So even if there was conflict, even if there was a bit of like obviously different creative ideas on something, we come from very different worlds, like extremely different worlds. You realize that as you're going through the project, because you're aiming towards the same goal, you're fighting in that direction. Versus if there was no solid goal and the directions were different, it would be significantly harder to get to where we want to get to.
Directionally, you're aligned. So
exactly.
That's incredible. That's the history part in itself is like legacy already. So that's huge. But that's so exciting. And so I guess my next question, selfishly, but for definitely everyone listening, what future projects has Kugali Media got planned? Is there anything you can tell us?
We have a few things we're working on, a few things we're cooking, but I'll generalize our goal as a company right now. And I'll come back to, remember when we say that line of we're going to kick this ass in Africa. I want to reflect on that line as well, on where I said that and how my vision of that has changed multiple times throughout this journey, right? So in terms of what's coming up, we have a 7-book deal. So we have a few comic books coming up. That's why we started off with comic books. That's how Disney found us. 2 of them are coming out this year. A few are going to come out. It's through 5 years. 7 are coming out. So we have those cooking. There's a secret project we cannot mention to anybody. So that's cooking in the background as well. And obviously lots and lots of discussions. If you follow the industry right now, the industry is not in the best place right now. The creative industry right now, not the best place. So everything is significantly slower. Just for everyone to have that in context over there. So that's in terms of what's coming on. And our goals, we call it EIQ. So E is obviously we want to kind of grow the entire creative economy on the continent. So that's the E bit. The I is obviously we want to make sure we're innovating with everything we do, right? We don't want to follow, we want to lead, all right? Yes, that's why everything we do, that's a first step. We really, really want to amplify that. And then Q is quality, high quality in whatever we do. So that's Kugali's goal over there, as in general. Now, the E came up recently, which is growing the entire creative economy. And I'm reflecting that back to the quote I said, kicking business ass in Africa. I said that quote because there's a line of questioning and reasoning that every time I hear it, it made me feel some kind of way about it, right? It always tick me off. I never lose myself, right? But it always nudges me away a little bit. And that line is usually when people talk about Africa and the just general continent of Africa, right? There seem to be an expectation that it's not going to be as good. Like that's an underlying expectation, right? Anything you're doing in that side, it's not going to be as good. And the line of questioning in my mind usually comes to, there's only 2 reasons it cannot be as good. Reason number 1 is the people are dumb or not creative. Reason number 2 is lack of resources. And that's the thing that burnt me was I know for sure it's number 2, but I couldn't prove it. We proved it with the Iwájú, right? I knew it was number 2. We don't have the resources. We don't have, like, nobody's giving us the chances.
Access, it's 100%.
Exactly, right? So I was thinking, if all these major companies, Disney just got a straight bullet because it was the biggest one over there, first one I thought about. If these major companies do not pay attention to African stories and African creativity, we at some point, because resources can easily be acquired. Talent is really harder. Resources come, right? At some point, somebody will find it in some way. The moment that point unlocks, they're gonna lose. So that was my thinking behind it. So it wasn't a joke. I remember the time somebody suggested a joke. I was like, I was pretty serious about it. I know it was a very lofty, big ambition, but I was very serious about it. And that's the straight bullet they caught. Now, in my mind, I thought this is the bit where I'm now reflecting just based on over the years, right? Because I've worked through Disney. So I'm one of the people who have had a privileged position of, I've worked inside a company just making productions. I've studied it in university. So I got it from an education perspective. I got it from a working man's perspective. I got it from a person who is creating a project's perspective. I've gone through the project from the beginning to the end. I've seen how the marketing works. I've had conversations with all the executives in all the levels over there. I've had people in different departments, spoken to them, spoken to different leaders about this topic. So the farthest I'll go is I've managed to get an audience with the president of Uganda speaking about this. So all the way up to presidents. So I have a very wide range of looking into this. And currently Kugali is in a fundraising round. If it's our biggest next step, that's one of the things we're doing right now. And talking to everybody and my view of all those levels, all the way down to the fundraising round, I believe that kicking a statement, Disney do not deserve that. Because now looking at the whole industry, I know who deserves that. I think it's just a matter of there is a tremendous lack of trust on the African people. And there's a question I posed in an event a while back, right? Sorry if this got very heavy, but I think you guys would love it.
Oh, we love the honesty. This is your story. Go for it.
Yes. This is a question. I've asked it to a few people, even in the continent of Africa, if you had $1 million and somebody tell you, give this to Africans in Africa, Asians in Asia, Europeans in Europe, North Americans, etc., I can almost guarantee nobody's giving that $1 million to Africans as investment. I didn't say putting it into the African land. I didn't say buying land in Africa. I didn't say buying African resources. I said giving it to Africans. Almost nobody will. But the moment you switch that question to Africans are suffering, hope Africans. So there's $1 million of hope you're going to give to somebody. You can give them $1 million to Africans. You can give them $1 million to Asians. You can give them to Europeans, etc. Very likely, some people will start considering Africa again over there. And I realized that's the biggest battle, is there is no trust in African people when it comes to investment. People, when it comes to looking at it as a helping case, people will do that. So just given the conversation, given the whole wide range I've seen, that is the issue right there. And if somebody cannot trust you to invest in you as a person, they'll rather invest in everything around you. You don't really get the chances most of the world gets. So that stray bullet that Disney got, I think, is more of I don't know who you'd attach the problem to, but because it affects all the levels. And even because of that, I give extra credit to Disney for trusting us. And obviously it paid off, right? As a series, it paid off and how successful it became. But the chances of that happening, obviously we played the best role we could get. Looking throughout the industry and observing it and just kind of getting educated about all the levels of the industries, right? So for example, last year I spoke in 12 different countries, about 11 or 12 different countries. And I posed the same questions, and it's always the same thing. People seem surprised that their thought process will not think Africa. And I'm like, that's the reason right there. We don't need more charity. We need that thought process to die, and everything will probably get fixed. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, because I think that for me was that's the legacy that I was referring to when you mentioned the history that was made with Iwájú. It's more than just like your personal legacy. It is for other people who look like you. It's for other African creatives. It's like this is well, we say small in the grand scheme of life and, the world history, but it's a huge, huge progressive step in terms of that trust. Because you're right that, that was a step of trust for Disney. But look at the results and look at the fruit. And actually, because of what you guys have done, it will be easier, the hope is, for the students who are currently at Herts or any other university that have similar goals and ambitions for their homeland. So yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's incredible to see how you've taken such a big topic and mission, and you're using your creative outlet to drive both, I guess, which is really, really powerful.
Yes, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
In all the answers that you've given so far, you've really displayed an entrepreneurial mindset and characteristics. So it's no surprise that you're still heavily involved with Hertfordshire, and you actually became an entrepreneur in residence at the university last year. So number one, what does that role involve? And two, yeah, what do you enjoy most about it?
So I'm going to give you the real answer, and then I'm going to give you the correct sounding answer. So the true answer and the answer I usually give everybody, right? So the answer I'll give everybody, which is It's true as well, but not the real reason, right? The answer I give everybody is, at the moment, the industry is changing at a tremendous speed. Like insane speed it's changing. And I don't think just being in, like, I don't think the education you get from university is enough. I think there needs to be somebody who is outside kind of adding into that loop in a constant way. So before you could do that monthly, you could do that maybe yearly, and it will still be okay. You don't get left behind too much. But right now, the rate of speed is so high, and nobody knows what the future looks like. And if you put those two things together, and then you look at students coming out of like an institution, you're in a tremendous disadvantage when you don't need to be. And the reason I pushed, because they gave me the offer and I accepted it, and then I pushed for a mentorship program, which I'm doing with them right now, right? And the reason I pushed for that is the students coming out of uni right now actually have a stronger chance of going further in the industry than a lot of people in the industry right now. Simply because you're starting, they have nothing to lose. Like if you fail, you're back to exactly where you began, right? For example, myself, I can't take a crazy risk. I have people to think about. From their side, with how things are changing quickly, I want to kind of really encourage them to don't just look inside a box. You're in the creative industry. Take that creativity, expand it, and look in the scale of the whole entire world. That's the key thing I want to push. I want to kind of open up the possibilities they think are out there. That's number one. And then number two, I also don't want them to, when they're going through that, because that's the journey I went through. It's like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. I want them to go for it in whichever aspects kind of reflect for themselves, right? But I also want them to look at it from a very whole world scale. Like consider the entire planet. Consider everything happening in the planet. Consider politics. Consider every single thing as you make that next step versus I learned how to draw. I want to find a job to draw. So that's the first step I want to do. The second one is when they're going through this, I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made. So I just want to pass it down there. Because if one of the prerequisites is speed, one of the biggest hindrances of speed is errors. So if you're going smoothly without any errors, you get there. But if you're going quickly, but every time you get an error, you're bouncing back, you bounce back, you bounce back, you will not really get the full benefit of your position. So I want to try and massage that as much as possible. And I want to see how far they can go. I want, like, in other words, I don't want somebody to go through the battle I went through to get to where I got to, right? Because right now, obviously, doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of scars and so on from all the battles, all the negotiations, all the this, all the that, all the false expectations. It all weighs on you at some point. And obviously, even if you're powering through, you're moving with more baggage.
Yeah.
They have no baggage. I want them to get to where I've gotten to without the level of baggage I have, and I see how far they can fly.
That's so nice to hear. Sometimes you do have that generational trope of people saying, well, it was hard for me. So it has to be hard for you. I struggled, so get on with it. So it's nice to hear that you actually want it to be easier. You want to, remove or if not reduce those barriers.
What's easier? I don't want them to fight what I fought. Like, why you go
Yeah.
fight the new stuff? Like,
Right. The new things
let's make progress forward.
Yeah. No, that's such a healthy narrative, I think, to hear from someone in your position, a mentor, that actually, yeah, you do want it to be easier in the ways that it was hard for you, because there's going to be other battles that they're going to have to face. Really, that's awesome. I mean, my next question was going to be advice, but I feel like you hit the nail on the head with all of that. That's incredible. And I feel like the students are very lucky to have you and have your passion for their futures as well. So just to wrap up, I mean, how can we keep up to date with what you've got going on and what Kugali Media are doing?
I say very easily. Social media usually. Kugali Media social media sends out updates as much as possible. If it's big enough news, it will get to you somehow. If you're trying to follow me, Hamid personally, it's Hamid Ibrahim, then portfolio. That would be my social on that, on myself personally. Kugali Media is Kugali Media every single place. So yeah, that's a way to keep in touch. I would say I'm always open to people sending messages. I'll try to reply. I'm still not big enough to where the replies are not hectic. So I try to reply as much as I can. Use Instagram rather than LinkedIn. I know this is reverse on what you get advised in uni, but this is just for me because Instagram can separate the messages, so your message doesn't get buried. LinkedIn, the messages can easily get buried, especially you go to like 2-3 events all of a sudden you're number 200, and then another event you're number 300. I'm never getting to you after that. But Instagram, at least, it's always in a very healthy, organized fashion. There's requests, there's general, there's primary, so nothing gets buried as deeply. So easily reach out, I always reply. It may take some time, but I always reply. I'm very honest on that. I don't know how long that will last for, so use it while you can.
It's true.
The number is increasing
PM
drastically.
you with urgency whilst we can. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Honestly, it's been thoroughly enjoyable, but fascinating to hear about your story and your career. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing what you do next.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Let's see the next journey. The next journey, I'll tell you honestly, on myself, one of the big goals this year, obviously, there's the mentorship thing, just because we need new soldiers. We need soldiers with less scars, right? We need soldiers whose perceptions are clear without any mental damage, if I'm to call it that, right? So that's one of my goals this year. And another big one is, as we say, growing that creative economy bit. That's something I'm really this year. That's a very high focus of mine on how do we not even just from the trust bit, and also just holding the people who are supposed to do their jobs accountable in that line of stuff. That's my goal this year. So you may get some news which sounds crazy. Just know it started here.
Yeah, I was going to say we have this podcast episode to refer to, so we'll be following you online and we'll be there to support.
Awesome. Thank you very
Right, thank
much.
you.